Ladies and gents, welcome to Reaction, and this is why the Suez Canal is so insanely important. And nukes. What does nukes have to do with Suez Canal? Alright. That time the US considered nuking a new canal. Oh, okay. By nukes, apparently, okay. This is by the channel Johnny Harris. Yeah. I reacted to real life lore video of Suez Canal thing that just happened, how the one ship blocked entire canal and that causes an issue. Now people, if they want to go to Europe, Americas, they have to cross entire continent of Africa now from South Africa. That's gonna cost them money, time. So yeah, Suez Canal is ridiculously important. Apparently there was also war for that. So yeah, that's what this one. Remember people, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the reaction, there's a link in the description. Check out the cast for the playlist, check out the end cards, and yeah.
So the big ship is not stuck anymore, which is kind of cool. There was this big cargo ship, it's like a quarter-mile long, and it was stuck in the Suez Canal. It created this huge traffic jam,
blocking one of the world's most important shipping lanes.
They spent days trying to dig it out. It was costing like $400 million an hour for the global economy, and now it's not stuck.
Someone in the comments says in that real life lore video reaction I did, like, it was costing them $400 million, but they were not losing the goods, so it wasn't really making $400 million loss. But that's not how trading works. See, making products, they will find resources. It's the seller. So let's just say a company could make $10 billion worth of sell in a week. Now because of this, they're only gonna make $9 billion worth of sell. So they made $1 billion less of a sell. That's a loss. Even though the product is still there, they have to make less of a production now because the product wasn't moving, and that's a loss overall. So yeah, this blockage did cost a lot of money to people.
But I can't stop thinking about it, because this ship and it being stuck for a few days reminds us just what the global economy is and how important one little strip of water can be, both for the economy but also for countries who want power. So I gotta tell you an insane story about this canal. It was the 1960s and the US government was thinking about using 520 nuclear bombs to make a new canal for themselves right here, next to the Suez Canal.
What? That is ridiculous. What about all the nuclear fallout? What about the country? Isn't that Iran or something? What is this? This is Jordan. This is Israel. Okay, so Egypt, Israel, Jordan, all of them will get screwed in the process because of all the nuclear fallout.
We're talking over 100 kilometers of a new canal to connect the Mediterranean to the Red Sea using nuclear bombs.
Just dig it, man. This Suez Canal wasn't there until somebody dig it. I'm pretty sure. So just dig the canal there. I mean, yeah, it might take time and resources, but US has resources. Come on.
Wait, what? Oh my gosh, it's so insane. Like, it's so insane. This was gonna cost like $5 billion in today's terms. And the idea here was to create a strategically valuable alternate to the present day Suez Canal. To understand why the US would even consider blowing up 520 nukes in the Israeli desert, you have to understand this little strip of water and why it has been so vital to so many powerful countries over the years. First, let's look at a map. This is an amazing project from shipmap.org, where each dot represents a cargo ship, similar size to like the Empire State Building. Each of these ships is carrying around 1,000 containers. It's like 25,000 tons of stuff. These ships fuel our lifestyles. A good example is your iPhone, if you have one. Before you ever see your iPhone, there's an amazing journey that it goes on. Every individual part of your iPhone has its own little story. They're sourced from 43 different countries on all 6 continents. There's no way I could go into every single component, but let's just take one thing, the processor, the sort of brain of your iPhone. The processor starts as raw materials, tons of raw materials, like boron from Turkey, or copper from Chile, or tantalum from Rwanda, and way, way more that are mined in different countries and shipped to a factory in Taiwan where it is manufactured. And
from Turkey, Chile to Rwanda to Taiwan. That is a long distances for this.
And then shipped to the Philippines to be tested and packaged before it is then shipped to China to be integrated into your phone. And that is just for the little processor in your iPhone, not to mention the screen. And
yeah, people who see this will think that this is really inefficient. Why would you do that? Why would you fly, you know, basically ship all these things across all these continents? I mean, there must be a better answer. But in the end, it's all logistics. Company just look at like what is the best condition and scenario which would cost us less. So if, you know, taking something from Chile to all the way to Taiwan, if that costs less than any other way, they're going to do that. So this is how things work. You know, a thing basically flies all around the world multiple times before it goes into the hand of consumers. Even the, you know, today, I mean, you know, bikes from India like Bajaj and TVS basically goes to Africa, South Americas, everywhere. You know, nowadays, you know, superbike makers also like KTM, even Kawasaki is putting plants in India. They're going to ship things from India because it's cheaper. And the items that comes to India comes from God knows from where. So, you know, it travels around the world. So, you know, global economy depends on the shipments. So ship getting stuck is ridiculously hurtful.
And the casing and the camera, each one of these has components that are sourced from all around the world. They go through this complex journey to then be assembled and then get put back onto a shipping container to be shipped to your country where you can buy it. No matter how I put it, saying it's a complex global supply chain, there's no way we can even fathom just how big and massive these operations are. The amount of space, of ocean that these products pass through to eventually make it into our hands. And this is everything, my clothing, my computer, my camera equipment, everything around me passes through this system. To add another layer of weird complexity, the ships themselves, like the physical ships, are also mind-bendingly complex. So let's take the Ever Given, this ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal recently. This ship is chartered by a Taiwanese company, okay, but it is registered in Panama. I've talked about ship registration in a different video, by the way, and why ships want to be registered in different countries. Anyway, it is registered in Panama, chartered by a Taiwanese company, but the ship itself, the physical ship, is owned by a Japanese company, which is owned by a bigger conglomerate of ship builders. Oh, and the technical manager on board is actually a German guy, and the crew are a bunch of Indian nationals. I mean, this ship itself is just a symbol of how big and convoluted and multi-layered this huge global system is. Okay, so that's the global economy. Let's get back to the Suez Canal.
Damn, from Japan to Indians, from Germans. Very international waters are that, isn't it? International waters. Even the ship has lots of different people from different countries.
Take a look at this canal for like 5 seconds and you realize that it's not natural. Way too straight of lines. But back before it was built, if you wanted to get from Europe to Asia, you had to sort of do this.
That's a long way.
Back then, the British controlled.
And you know, this map. Yeah, this is a flat map and it's not a globe. So this Africa is smaller here. It's much bigger. Africa is much bigger that, you know, you can see on the map. So this is really huge distance. You think that instead of going this you know, doubles or triples, no, this is really huge distance. Africa is immense.
Back then, the British controlled this little port in South Africa, which gave them a very nice strategic advantage because everyone who was doing world trade or domination had to pass through them. The British were loving this monopoly over the trade route until like the mid-1800s, when the French went to the Egyptians and they said, hey, is there any way we could like dig out a canal right here on this land bridge that connects Africa with Asia? It's almost 200 kilometers long, but if we could just dig out a canal here, we would save thousands of kilometers on each trip to Asia. Reminder, this is like the 1860s and like they don't have loads of fancy equipment to do this, but they try it anyway. With over 100,000 people, many of them forced laborers, working on this canal for over 10 years, they were able to dig this big canal that connected the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. The British were down here still like, wait, why is no one coming through our Cape anymore? And the French were up here just laughing, feeling so good about their new canal. So over the years, quickly this becomes the epicenter of water control and balance of power. Control over the canal is mainly French and Egyptian for most of its time, but eventually the British just couldn't help themselves. They needed in on this waterway. Fast forward a few years and all of the big powers get together and say whoa, 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 we built this canal with a spirit of cooperation and neutrality. All countries should be able to use this canal even in times of war. Everything will be peaceful and wonderful, and this will be no.
Sing Kumbaya.
They signed this treaty about neutrality and everyone can use it, but let's just say it right now, that's not the way the world works.
Yeah.
Soon the globe descended into World War, and it became clear that this canal would not be neutral anytime soon. Hitler wanted it, so him and his Italian allies went down to try to take it over. British fought back and they were able to keep it, and there were British troops there. So the canal remained in British control until the 1950s, when finally Egypt was okay, listen, France, Britain, this has been fun, this whole pretend that this is neutral, but it's not actually neutral and you're actually just using it for whatever you want thing. You're done. It is our canal. Get out of here. And he's oh, and Israel, you can't come here and use our waterway either. That's part of this. So France and Britain aren't feeling super great. They just got kicked out of their key strategic waterway. They decide to say no, and they send in a bunch of paratroopers to the Suez Canal along with Israel's fighters to recapture the canal from Egypt and to overthrow the government that just kicked them out. And the US is seeing all of this and they're guys, it's not 1850 anymore, okay? Times have changed. You can't just show up wherever you want and just take it over militarily. We don't do that anymore. That's so old school empire. But the US says you can still be an empire in these times. You just have to be a little smoother about it.
Good, baby. So US be you can't just do that. You can't just invade country like that. Fast for a few decades. And that's exactly what they did with Iraq.
So the US sends in this Canadian guy to settle the conflict over the canal, and everyone's sort of okay, fine. And the canal goes back to peace with some UN peacekeepers to keep it at peace, kind of. Well, no, this isn't gonna last. So this is where the US gets it creative and is ooh, what can we do to not have to fight over the canal, but do our own thing? And that's when the nuclear bombs come up, where they're if we just plant 520 nuclear bombs here in the Israeli desert, we could just have our own canal and then we don't have to fight over this one. So it's 1967, and Israel's I'm not super into the idea of you nuking our desert, but we like nuclear weapons, and we'll totally get on board with that. In the meantime, can we go in and attack Egypt ourselves and get the canal, and you can just sort of back us from the sidelines? And the US is okay, fine. So Israel...
That is so effed up, isn't it? So Britain and France were basically fighting Egypt for the canal. And US you can't do that. Look at you. Look at what you're doing. You should be ashamed of yourself and slowly trying to take it canal for themselves. That is so damn funny, man.
Goes in and takes over all of this land, all the way up to the Suez Canal. So it's Egypt on one side, Israel on the other. And for the next few years, this becomes a literal battleground for multiple wars. They were building bridges across the canal to bring in tanks and fight. Oh, and of course, during these years of fighting from the late 60s to the mid 70s, the canal was closed for obvious reasons. The problem is when they closed it, there were 15 ships that were in process of moving through, and those ships just got stuck there for literally 8 years. So yeah, Ever Given, we know that it was a hard few days.
Hold up there. So these ships were trying to, pass through, and they started this war and closed the canal, and they got literally stuck there. Why couldn't they just go all right, everybody chill, let's just let them go? There's no reason to make them. That is so effed up, man.
The world was super worried about you, $400 million a day. Imagine being one of these guys. 8 years. At least they had fun during their time, I guess. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? What I'm trying to do here is not give you a history lesson of the Suez Canal. I'm trying to explain that this stretch of water has always been a magnet for international conflict ever since its very, very conception. After that last war, the US is like, okay, broker a peace, they broker a peace, and then they bring in these helicopters to the Suez Canal with like a water sled behind them, and they drag them along the water because there was a bunch of like live explosives from the wars, and they were trying to like rid them all so that they could resume, you know, like normal shipping lanes. They eventually did that. They got rid of all the explosives and reopened the canal in 1975, and the canal remained peaceful and under the control of its rightful owner, the Egyptians, forevermore, and there was no more conflict or geopolitical scheming ever again. No, that isn't the way the world works. Yes, things have changed in the way that we do it. But the fact is, when you have a system like this, and a large portion of that system, which is money and control and economics and energy, runs through a choke point in that system, there will always be geostrategic value that is put on that system, not just for economics, but for power. So do you think that the United States, who's sort of the big boy world policeman right now, would sit here and let Egypt control the chokehold where 12% of the world economy passes through, including loads of oil? No, that's not how it works. Despite the fact that Egypt is a non-democratic regime that is pretty terrible on all fronts, including human rights, the US still provides $1.4 billion of military aid to Egypt every year. They are always considered a key ally in the Middle East. I mean, the Clinton administration made it very clear that the reason we...
Yeah, why make war and try to take the canal when you can just use diplomacy? That is something, isn't it? So basically, you know, to get more, you know, somewhat of a claim, just make Egypt your friend by giving them $1.5 billion. Why not?
We support Egypt is because they have the Suez Canal and we need them to owe us favors.
Obviously.
That continues today. Whenever a US military vessel shows up to the Suez Canal, they get to cut in line and go through quicker than everybody else. So yeah, Egypt...
What? They actually do that? So this is all behind the scene. Like, they are not openly saying that we are paying $1.5 billion so we could use the lane. They're not openly saying that. So when actually they cut the line, US ships, and the other ship going like, okay, why are you letting them do that? And other people getting pissy about it. Who are actually waiting in the line and see the US ship cutting line, and they get going like, oh, okay, what's happening here?
Egypt owns the canal, but really it's the US behind the scenes that is keeping everything in order. The canal is not neutral, it will never be neutral. There will always be geopolitical importance placed on it. And as long as there's a superpower, that superpower will control the canal. The last thing I'll say here is that we live in a world that is very strange for how peaceful it is. We've had an enduring peace for many, many decades. That peace allows us to have a system like this. And that peace exists partly because we are so entangled with one another economically that it doesn't make sense to go to war. But we have to remember that that peace also exists because all the big powers have really big weapons that are always pointed at each other. If something slips or escalates a little too far, just remember that the Suez Canal isn't the only choke point on Earth where all of this system flows through. And that while we take peace for granted now, it would be naive not to wonder what happens if that were to go away, and we were faced with not just one ship being stuck for a few days, but an entire region militarized and unavailable for this type of shipping flow that we're so used to. And for years, I don't want to sound alarmist, but I do want us to be thinking about our reliance on this system and what it means for the future of rising powers that may not want to cooperate as well as they do today. So when I see Ever Given blown off course for a few
yeah, I mean, that is something, isn't it? That is true. I mean, wars are not happening for the same reason. I mean, world is dependent on each other. I mean, US is not making products because they don't have as much as human laborers to do so, but they are rich, so they're going to pay China and India to make stuff. China and India is going to do that because they have manpower. You know, same thing goes with the Europe. Europe has you know, lots of innovative things, but they also need manpower. So Europe, China, USA has a lucrative deals going on. So it's a economic incentive. Why would they go to war? So wars are unlikely. But also, you know, everybody has nukes. So, you know, and nobody gets a bit. Let's just say how Russia annexed Crimea. Small things like that doesn't happen with big powers. So they all have nukes, like, don't even think of touching one of my territories. So in that sense, but yeah, something like this, you know, Suez Canal, and there are other things like that too. Like you said, if they get blocked like that, it could hurt the economy really badly. I think they should consider, you know, literally digging another canal besides Suez Canal, since it's so slim and one ship can block it. That's an issue.
A few days and everyone freaking out about it. I don't just see one ship. I see a vulnerable system, and I see myself and how deeply connected I am to that system. So I'm listening to an audiobook right now called Silence, Shusaku.
Yeah, people, go to audible.com/Johnny Harris and support this channel. Johnny Harris, this was a great video. The music, the way he said it, this is a great channel. Obviously, million subscribers, near million, so it's a great channel. Yeah, Suez Canal is a, you know, really weak point. If just one ship can block an entire canal, either they should, you know, widen it massively, so, you know, it would require somewhat like 2 ships to block it. But yeah, or either, you know, create another canal, but something needs to be done, because this can't happen anytime. This happened because a sandstorm just came at the right time. That can happen at any time, and the ships are increasing. The global demand is increasing for trade, and the, you know, ships are increasing. There's going to be even more ships going through the canal now. So yeah, they need to do something about it, because this is going to be a frequent thing then. Yeah. This was a good video. Alright people, if you like my next one, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out the lyrics and there's a link in the description. Check out the cast please check out the end cards, and I'll see you next time.